in another one of our more advanced chain of command tactic videos, we're going to look at detaching some scouts. Detaching scouts is something that can be done by a leader, and it allows you to detach 2 men from a team in a section to form a little small team that can move independently. It's a very dangerous maneuver, and you have to really weigh out the risks versus the rewards of it. The risks being that obviously you've now split your section into 3 teams, or instead of 2, one of those teams is very small, and by nature of it being a scout, it's probably going to be detached from the section, so you're maximising your ability to have bad things happen if they get shot. So that's a little bit risky. You've also diminished the size of your main section by the 2 you sent off in the scout, which means that they're more likely to be pinned and have problems with shock as well. So what are the advantages? Why would you ever do this? Well, there are cases, for example, when you may want to force your opponent's hand. You're attacking, he hasn't deployed yet, you want to force him to deploy something maybe you've got like a big counter, you've had a good turn of dice, and you've got some cover and fire, and you want to be able to hit him. You've got a plan, but he hasn't deployed anything. If you're close enough to a jump-off point, you can maybe send 2 scouts out as if provided you force morale's high enough to take the loss if anything bad happens, to kind of force him to deploy to defend it. That's a reasonably good use of them. Some factions and their national characteristics, namely Americans, I think Russians, get other rules that make the scouts a bit better, because normally, obviously, your junior leader can only order them if they're within his command range, which means that as they go off to scout, they're harder to activate and problems occur. But if I remember rightly, the American national characteristic, I've not played Americans for ages, allows them to order their scouts provided their junior leader has line of sight. So effectively, it's part of their training, and it represents the way they work on the battlefield. So that allows them to have some nice control over their scouts. Again, it's still risky because they're a small team and they may get wiped out, but it does allow you to maybe put pressure on a jump-off point without risking an entire team going out into the open, for example. Anyway, enough of having to deal with me. I'll move the camera position, put some minis out, and we'll have a look at scouting in action. Catch you in a bit. So here we have some trusty Americans and a German jump-off point. So imagine a 3's been rolled on the order dice. They want to move up and put pressure on that jump-off point. They could order the entire squad out. If I move this up, so there's basically a gate that they can move through, so we don't have to deal with climbing fences and all. They could run 2d6, start putting pressure on it. But assuming this isn't an isolated part of the battlefield and there's other things going on, they may end up stuck out in the open and risking an entire squad getting shot to put pressure on that. For example, let's assume bad things. They roll a 4. So they've said they're going to move towards this, so the entire squad basically moves out to about here. They're not close enough to put pressure on that jump-off point. So what would happen is the Germans could deploy onto that jump-off point and maim an entire squad in the open, which wouldn't be very good. So we've assumed they've rolled a 3. What could be done is the bar section could be put on Overwatch to cover, and the scout section could be sent up from the rifle team. They move 7 inches, so they move to about here. They're probably close enough to put pressure on it. Even if they're not, we've only risked 2 guys in the open, and we've got some cover being put down on there. That's the kind of optimum use. If you're going to do it from distance, it could be the case that you've had a few turns to set this up. So you've got a line, you've got several units all on Overwatch ready, but those pesky Germans are not deploying. So then you can send your 2-man scout team up as basically a sort of troubleshooter that's going to move forward, try to threaten some jump-off points, and make the enemy deploy. So that's the main use of scouts, is to get the enemy to sort of tip their hand and so you can see what they have planned and to force them to deploy. Like I said, I think Russians and Americans definitely have some extra rules that make it much more worthwhile doing. I very rarely, playing as British or Germans, come into a point where I felt the risk is low enough to justify the reward, if you see what I mean. Especially with Germans, because it's a lot of firepower and the teams are small. So sending 2 guys out, that's not very good. You know, from a Panzer Grenadier platoon, you're pushing on using everybody who's not the crew of a machine gun to do that, and it's probably not worth it. And as they're a detached team, ordering them's a nightmare. But when I used to play Americans more, back when we started, it's something that they find a little bit easier to get away with on the battlefield. So that's scouting. It has its uses, like all the advanced tactics we're going to talk about. The trick is knowing when to use them and when not to. Again, if you like this, please give us a like, subscribe, some nice comments. Makes us feel better about doing the videos anyway. And if there's anything you want us to talk about, chuck it in the comment section. We'll see what we can do. Take care.